The Marvel Zombie Saga begins in 2005 with Ultimate Fantastic Four number 21, written by Mark Millar. This wasn't originally meant to be a standalone horror playground. It was framed as an alternate universe crossover. The story teased readers into thinking Reed Richards was about to meet the main Marvel Universe's Fantastic Four. Instead, he unknowingly opened a gateway to Earth 2149, a dimension where nearly every superhero had been transformed into flesh-eating corpses. It was Marvel's way of saying, "Congratulations! You expected heroics. But here's Spider-Man chewing on Aunt May." The Infection's Patient Zero was introduced in this arc, an alternate Sentry who arrived on Earth 2149 carrying a mysterious virus. This wasn't a slow infection, it worked with terrifying efficiency. Heroes bitten by the Sentry immediately transformed, driven by an insatiable hunger for flesh. Unlike traditional zombies, these versions didn't shuffle around groaning. They retained their intelligence, their personalities, and most dangerously, their powers. Imagine Doctor Strange still able to cast spells while also wanting to peel your skin like a banana. That combination made them exponentially more horrifying than anything Romero ever dreamed up. Once the Sentry spread the virus to the Avengers, the downfall was almost instant. This world's mightiest heroes turned into its hungriest predators. They tore through their own allies, civilians, and villains alike. Spider-Man's guilt reached cosmic levels as he devoured Mary Jane and Aunt May. Captain America, later renamed Colonel America for legal reasons, became a walking corpse with half his face missing, still wielding the shield while his jaw literally dangled. The Infection wasn't just destroying Earth 2149, it was dismantling the idea of superhero nobility itself. The first dedicated Marvel Zombies miniseries, written by Robert Kirkman in 2005, cemented this nightmare as its own corner of Marvel lore. Kirkman, who also created The Walking Dead, leaned into the grotesque humor and moral collapse. Heroes didn't just eat, they joked about it. They argued over leftovers. They kept hunting even after admitting they hated themselves for it. It was the Marvel Universe flipped inside out, showing that even icons like Iron Man and Wolverine would trade morality for marrow if pushed far enough. That's what made the origin so effective. This wasn't an outside apocalypse forced on Marvel's roster. It was Marvel heroes themselves who carried it out, with the Infection accelerating their collapse. And because these were alternate versions, Marvel had free license to crank up the gore without worrying about damaging the main continuity. It was bold, brutal, and just self-aware enough to wink at readers who thought superheroes were untouchable. Deadpool would probably put it like this: "So basically, Marvel wanted to see what happens when their A-list hero swaps saving the world for eating it. Spoiler alert, it's finger-licking good." Once the Infection takes hold, it spreads faster than gossip at Xavier's mansion. Patient Zero is believed to be an alternate universe Sentry who crash-landed in this world carrying the virus. Within hours of his arrival, the contagion leaps into Earth's mightiest heroes like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Iron Man, Luke Cage, and Thor, titans who normally stand between humanity and oblivion, fall in quick succession. Each infection multiplies the problem. The stronger the hero, the more unstoppable the hunger. Unlike traditional zombies, these infected keep their intelligence, powers, and tactics. Captain America, now rechristened Colonel America thanks to a nasty facial injury, still commands with military precision. Only now he's plotting ambushes to feed, not save. Spider-Man swings from rooftop to rooftop, wrecked with guilt one second and devouring Aunt May the next. Wolverine, whose healing factor can't purge the virus, becomes a flesh-eating berserker with adamantium claws. These are not shambling corpses. They are apex predators with capes. The virus is efficient, bypassing normal barriers like magic or healing factors. Doctor Strange's mystical wards collapse against it. Even the Hulk isn't spared. Once infected, Banner's constant rage ensures he never stops feeding. The Fantastic Four crumble when Reed Richards, desperate to understand the infection, experiments on himself. His curiosity dooms his family, and soon the Baxter building becomes a charnel house. Society crumbles almost overnight. Police and armies mount defenses, but how do you hold the line when your champions lead the charge against you? Cities burn, governments topple, and within days, civilization is a wasteland of gnawed bones and crimson streets. The infection doesn't just topple nations, it eradicates the very concept of safety. Even cosmic defenders aren't spared. Silver Surfer arrives as Galactus' herald, only to be torn apart and consumed. His power cosmic doesn't cure the hunger, it enhances it. The Devourers become more powerful, more insatiable. Their appetites now stretching across planets. This single escalation signals the point of no return. Earth is finished, and the stars are next. The speed of collapse is almost comedic in its cruelty. In less than a week, the planet goes from bustling metropolis to an all-you-can-kill buffet. Survivors huddle in the underground bunkers or isolated sanctuaries, but their chances are laughably slim. When your predators can fly, teleport, and stretch across city blocks, there's no such thing as hiding. The infection doesn't just break the world, it chews it up, swallows, and burps for more. Deadpool Barb, imagine your worst nightmare, now give it superpowers and a buffet pass. That's Marvel Zombies. Oh, and spoiler, nobody asks for a doggy bag. In the Marvel Zombies universe, survival is less about hope and more about stubborn refusal to die screaming. When the infection consumed Earth's mightiest heroes, what remained were small, desperate enclaves clinging to life amid the ruins. These weren't glorious bastions of civilization, but fragile, temporary safe zones where every cough could be a death sentence and every shadow a reminder that your favorite Avenger might come crashing through the wall, teeth first. One of the most notable groups of survivors emerged in Wakanda. Isolated and technologically advanced, Wakanda functioned like a fortress in a sea of blood. While the rest of the planet collapsed into chaos, T'Challa's people sealed their borders and fortified their defenses. Vibranium walls and disciplined warriors kept the infection at bay, at least for a time. Wakanda wasn't immune to infiltration, few places were, but it demonstrated how strategic planning and ruthless isolation could preserve a fragment of humanity. In a world where Iron Man could bite your face off, Wakanda remained a reminder that order and community hadn't completely evaporated. The SHIELD helicarrier provided another critical refuge. High above the ground, beyond the immediate reach of the ravenous hordes, Nick Fury and his agents carved out a precarious holdout in the skies. Supplies were scarce, morale was brittle, and paranoia spread faster than the virus itself. Trust was nearly impossible when one infected individual could turn the floating stronghold into a flying buffet line. Still, the helicarrier symbolized one last attempt at structured resistance, a desperate play to maintain some semblance of authority. Deadpool would probably describe it as humanity's equivalent of duct taping your front door shut during a zombie apocalypse. It might delay the inevitable, but you're still doomed. Not all refuges were fortresses. Some survivors relied on sheer grit and cunning. Street-level heroes like Luke Cage and streetwise civilians formed scattered resistance groups. They lacked the firepower of Wakanda or the infrastructure of S.H.I.E.L.D., but they had adaptability. These ragtag bands became legends precisely because they endured against overwhelming odds. Their stories were less about triumph and more about endurance, the kind of grim fairy tales whispered in the dark to remind people that resistance, however small, was possible. Of course, not every last stand succeeded. Many enclaves collapsed in grisly fashion, often when trust frayed or when hunger overwhelmed reason. Entire survivor camps were torn apart in moments, swallowed whole by zombified heroes whose powers made them unstoppable predators. The lesson was brutally clear. In this universe, survival wasn't about finding safety, it was about delaying the inevitable in the most creative way possible. Or, as Deadpool might quip, "It's not about outliving the apocalypse, it's about making sure your neighbors taste better than you do." These pockets and last stands reveal the psychological toll of Marvel Zombies. They show how societies fracture under pressure and how even the most advanced nations or organizations are reduced to frantic improvisation. Every holdout is a countdown, every barricade temporary. Survival isn't about winning, it's about not losing just yet. If the Marvel Zombies universe is a banquet of horror, then the arrival of Galactus was the 5-course apocalypse special. By the time the Devourer of Worlds set his cosmic gaze on Earth, the planet was already a smoldering graveyard patrolled by superpowered corpses with hollow stomachs. Normally, Galactus descends on thriving planets, draining their life force to sustain his own, but here, he found something far stranger, a dying world already consumed by hunger, populated by heroes who no longer sought justice, only flesh. At first, Galactus' arrival looked like the endgame for everyone. The Silver Surfer, as usual, arrived ahead of his master to herald doom, but instead of inspiring dread, his presence sparked frenzy. The zombie heroes, already brimming with unnatural appetites, realized that devouring the Surfer might give them the cosmic power needed to finally overcome their starvation. What followed was less a battle and more a savage feeding frenzy. The likes of Hulk, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and a handful of others swarmed the Surfer, ripping him apart with the enthusiasm of kids tearing into Halloween candy. It was brutal, grotesque, and darkly ironic. Earth's saviors didn't repel Galactus' herald, they ate him alive. The result of consuming the Silver Surfer was immediate and catastrophic. The infected heroes absorbed fragments of his power cosmic, giving them abilities that far exceeded their former limits. Zombie Spider-Man could fire cosmic energy blasts from his decaying hands. Hulk's rage became fused with raw cosmic might. Even Iron Man, rotting inside his armor, wielded destructive energy on a scale he had never achieved in life. Their hunger didn't diminish. If anything, it grew worse. But now they had the power to consume on a galactic scale. Galactus himself soon descended, furious at the loss of his herald. In any normal timeline, the confrontation would have ended with Earth's annihilation, but the newly empowered zombies proved too strong, overwhelming the Devourer with sheer cosmic gluttony. They didn't just defeat him, they ate him. Imagine a being older than time itself, a force of balance in the universe, reduced to an all-you-can-eat buffet for decaying Avengers. It was sacrilegious, absurd, and horrifyingly fitting for a universe defined by hunger without end. The Galactus event, as it's remembered within the lore, changed everything. The infected were no longer confined to Earth's scraps. With the power cosmic coursing through their rotting veins, they spread outward into the stars. Entire civilizations, Kree, Skrull, Shi'ar, fell victim to this undead tide. Whole galaxies were stripped bare in weeks. The infection wasn't just a planetary plague anymore, it was an interstellar extinction event. For readers, this was a true escalation point. What began as a grotesque parody of a zombie outbreak became a cosmic horror story. Marvel's greatest heroes were no longer failed guardians of Earth. They were galactic predators on a scale the universe had never faced. Or as Deadpool might narrate, "Forget your brains, people. Now the menu's gone full cosmic. Today's special, Galactus, served rare." The most chilling element of the Marvel zombie saga isn't just a body count, it's what happens when godlike superheroes retain their abilities after death. Unlike traditional zombies, these weren't mindless shamblers. They kept their intelligence, their personalities, and most terrifyingly, their powers. This combination made them exponentially more dangerous than any undead horde in horror fiction. Take Spider-Man. Even after succumbing to the infection, Peter Parker was still slinging webs, wall crawling, and lifting cars. The difference was that instead of saving civilians from burning buildings, he was tearing through crowds for lunch. The guilt-ridden, wisecracking hero readers knew was replaced with a tortured predator who would pause mid-feast only to mourn the horror of what he'd become. His intellect remained, but his moral compass was gone, eaten away as surely as the flesh on his victims. The Hulk presented a different nightmare. In life, Bruce Banner was a reluctant titan whose rage was barely restrained. In Undeath, that restraint was obliterated. The zombie Hulk was trapped in a cycle of hunger and pain. Whenever he reverted to Banner, the human body couldn't contain the volume of flesh he devoured as Hulk, rupturing him from the inside. Then, enraged by the agony, he'd transform again and start the cycle anew. He was grotesque, But it also highlighted how the infection twisted powers into curses. Iron Man, meanwhile, exemplified technological horror. His armor still functioned, but inside was a rotting, liquefying body. Imagine a zombie pilot fused into a decaying cockpit, blasting civilians with repulsor rays not out of duty, but desperation for fresh meat. His brilliance didn't disappear. He could still strategize, still improvise, but every decision was now driven by hunger. If Tony Stark once embodied the ingenuity of humanity, his undead counterpart was a symbol of what happens when genius is stripped of conscience. Other infected heroes underwent equally disturbing changes. Wolverine's healing factor meant he could withstand endless decay without ever truly rotting away. This gave him an advantage over other zombies, but it also made him a relentless predator who couldn't be killed in the conventional sense. The Scarlet Witch wielded chaos magic even as a corpse, casting spells between bites of flesh, and Captain America, or rather Colonel America in this universe, marched onward with his shield, his jaw literally hanging off, turning patriotic speeches into grisly rallying cries for carnage. What united them was the paradox of memory. The zombies remembered who they were. They retained flashes of morality, guilt, and even camaraderie. Spider-Man wept for Aunt May and Mary Jane even as he fed on strangers. Hank Pym experimented on captured survivors, rationalizing his sadism as science. This thread of memory made the infected more unsettling than mindless ghouls. They weren't driven by instinct alone. They knew exactly what they were doing. This mixture of memory, power, and hunger created monsters who weren't just dangerous, but tragic. They weren't protecting humanity anymore. They were its extinction-level predators. Or in Deadpool's darker brand of humor, congrats, true believers! Your friendly neighborhood superheroes are still friendly, just not to your intestines.